Welcome, my fans and curious friends. I am Mrs. Demanding. Now, before we begin, you can find this podcast show in iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and Stitcher. So download the episode, unplug from life, and dive all into episode 2 of the Mr. Difficult and Mrs. Demanding Keeping It Real podcast. Today, we are discussing the Peter Pan syndrome.
Arrogance comes naturally, humility not so much, dismissive and irreverent to all, unapologetic. Until I met my wife, that is. I am Mr. Difficult.
You are lucky to have a wife and should thank the heavens to have me. I am Mrs. Demanding. I don't ask for much because I expect it all. Nothing but the best, and I don't settle for less. Now, as always, we are keeping it real, and this episode is no different. What is the Peter Pan syndrome? Why haven't you heard of it? Or maybe you have. Is it a legitimate condition or another cloak of bullshit? Finally, climb aboard and enjoy the entire show, because I'm ending it with plenty of ridiculous honesty. Once the podcast episode ends, we are keeping it going on our website with this episode's real talk questions.
Peter Pan syndrome. Isn't that what you want to discuss today?
That's exactly what I want to discuss. You felt very confident that that's what you had about a couple of weeks ago. So let's get to it.
No, I've actually thought about it for years, even before, the kids. I always thought that's what I had. Apparently, it's a pop psychology phenomenon. So what that means is it's something that people talk about in popular culture, right? And since then, I've discovered that it's not true. I don't have Peter Pan syndrome.
And what made you come to that conclusion? Because you were quite confident that that was your escape or excuse from having to be responsible and mature 24/7.
Right. No, I think I still, have trouble being responsible 24/7 and all of that. I do feel like escaping, right, my reality and all of that.
We never stated what the Peter Pan syndrome, what it is. So would you please?
Yeah. So in Latin, there's a word called, 2 words, puer aeternus, right? What that means is eternal boy, right? In psychology, it's an older person whose emotional life has remained at an adolescent level.
And what does an adolescent maturity level look like for a boy? And since I was never one, feel free to enlighten me.
Yeah, so essentially you have a sort of a fear of being caught in a situation from where you might not be able to escape. So you covet independence and freedom and oppose boundaries and limits and tends to find any restriction of any sort intolerable.
And you're convinced that this is not you?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, but why do I personally see some overlapping interests as far as that definition and knowing you personally for 15 years? I see overlapping interests.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
And we've battled over the years about this.
I've definitely got some elements of it, but I don't think I have the whole thing. I don't think I'm completely like that.
What would be completely? Is there a list of things that you have to check off?
They have some extreme examples, right? They talk about Michael Jackson, for example, right? I mean, I don't know if you remember all the things he did, right? He basically bought a huge mansion. He filled it with, a sarcophagus. He would sleep in it every night. He bought, someone's gloves or something for $1 million, right? That kind of thing, right?
But isn't it relative, though? I mean, if ideally...
Playland, like in play mode,
But everyone's definition of a playland is completely different. You would like to be fed. You would like to drink your whiskeys. And you would like to travel first class private jet and stay in luxury resorts. Maybe that's your definition of a playland. As long as it doesn't have to do with cooking, cleaning, or any routine, that would define your playland.
Yeah, but, over the years, I've realized that there is a value to that as well. Especially when you have children, there is a value to that. Because that's how they also learn that, normal life is normal life, right? You don't have to have a fun thing every minute or every hour or whatever. Right?
You're actually trying to tell me you believe that to be the truth, because that sounds like something I would say, and maybe I've brainwashed you. But knowing you,
no. So as a child, obviously, I did have that, right? I did have fun, and I had lots of fun, and my life was focused on the pursuit of fun, and no one stopped that, right? But I think it was detrimental to me as a person.
Clearly, I've brainwashed you.
Which is why now I don't oppose it, because as the years have gone by, you realize I oppose you less and less on these topics, right? I was very antagonistic to you when you would try to discipline, right?
You are still antagonistic.
Older child.
Right now, you just have a very bobblehead, silly grin on your face. You've learned to kind of throw away the key and zip it. But if your face could talk, you don't agree. And
With
ideally...
What? No, I do agree. Daily
life and what it entails, you enjoy that. I'm sorry, because
No, I don't enjoy it, okay?
Okay, let's be... Okay.
I don't enjoy it at all. I mean, I would love to, as you say, have a free life and, not have to worry about this, that, and the other. And,
because we've talked about how you're not husband material and daddy material 24/7. It's too much for you. So
it is. There comes a point where, I can't take it anymore. And then I have to go and eat, some Chinese food or Vietnamese food or some kebabs or something.
So you have a problem with adulting. Adulting is dealing with adult matters on a consistent, reliable basis with joy and bliss.
Okay. When you meet that person, you tell me. Because that person doesn't exist.
Well, you're portraying yourself to be that.
No, hell no. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it's good to present aspects of that to your children as well, because they realize that normal life doesn't have to be exciting from one minute to the next.
Okay, so why...
That's what I mean.
So why hasn't it taken you 15 years to come to this great person that you are now?
I think some people just...
Because I still have PTSD.
I think some people just take a long time to grow up.
I still think you're work in progress.
Probably so for the rest of my life. Yeah, it is a work in progress, and that's what I'm saying. The point is, because I was allowed to pursue whatever my latest fancy was, I never realized that, and therefore folks like you, right, had to deal with me.
What do you mean, folks like me? What kind of what?
Well, that's why it takes a strong person to deal with me, because I've got all of these flights of fancy.
So you were raised to be the perfect Peter Pan syndrome candidate. And it's ingrained in you naturally to be catered to and indulged completely and fully.
Correct.
So,
another aspect I think is sort of the fear of commitment, right? We talked about that.
Oh yeah, when you say that you wanted to marry me, and I said sure, and I kept asking you when we going to get married. How long did you tell me? What was your answer? How long did you keep telling me that for?
I had a few answers. One of them was soon.
Right.
Second was we'll see.
Right.
Third was I don't know right now, right, and so on. Yes. So also known as being dicked around.
Yeah, completely dicked around.
Yes.
So
yes,
you're trying to tell me you no longer have the Peter Pan syndrome, or you never had the Peter Pan syndrome, or you were being groomed to be Peter Pan, but you fell off the wagon. Which one is it?
No, I don't think it was anyone's intention, right? It was very simple. I just got what I wanted when I was a child. I think every parent, strives to do that in one way or the other, right? Now, of course, you being who you are, you clamp down on this kind of behavior, right? And in fact, I was going to do exactly that with our older child.
You mean cater?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But you did do that. We actually diverged.
There were times where, she would not eat this, that, and the other, and I would say, hang on, you know what? I'm going to make something else for you, right? And I've done that, right? I've done that. Within a span of an hour, I've made 3 things, and she
said
didn't eat any
no.
of it.
And
she didn't eat any of it.
And
right?
what did I tell you?
I don't remember the exact bloody
I
words
told
now.
you shouldn't do that. We're not a bloody restaurant, and
Correct,
you're setting up some unrealistic expectations.
Exactly.
And she's going to lead you around by the nose.
And I think as a child, for me, that was what was done repeatedly, and therefore I ended up, being who I am, right?
But you do feel that you had a great childhood, and you would not change it for the world. So why?
No, I mean, like with anything else, right? With anything else, it's there's always good and bad, right? So the good is obviously, yes, I do feel I had a fantastic childhood. I was very well, taken care of, all of those things. But that kind of, elastic sort of parenting, right, leads to problems for the child later on. Because they have unrealistic expectations from everyone.
And how has that played out? Like, as an adult, being catered to, indulge, and enjoying the finer things in life. Have you encountered some, now when you look back, funny scenarios where you're happy that you were catered to, but on the other hand, you had another situation where you were like, damn, I'm kicking myself. I should have known better. I wish I wasn't raised in this way. Like, do you have two different situations, or you're just happy and you like being with a difficult woman?
Well, it works precisely because you don't give in to anything and everything that I want at every single time.
It drives you mad.
It does, but the point is it shouldn't, because that's a reasonable relationship. That's what a relationship is about. It's always about give and take. Now, of course, you only take.
Well, you have nothing to give, so what is it to take?
Yeah, because you took it all.
Look, seriously though, I think the Peter Pan syndrome is straight up bullshit to benefit men. It's an excuse, like many others, to justify the bullshit that you guys do and to continually perpetuate the bullshit that we have to encounter as women living in this world, whether it be a girl growing up with a brother having double standards, or dating this motherfucker in high school and college, and then turn around and marrying the motherfucking prick, and he's doing the same shit. I think it's an excuse. And if women were to walk around having our own syndrome, calling, I guess, the Princess Beauty syndrome, and we walk around twirling and doing our hair and nails and living in a castle and not taking care of responsibilities, we would not have something as nice as the Peter Pan syndrome to describe our lack of a performance.
So in urban, so no, I mean, you bring up a good point about it being slightly sexist, right? This whole syndrome. But the point is that that term is applied to women as well.
Oh, really?
Yes. I've encountered many women who are completely self-centered. They have no clue how they affect other people. They'll sort of use and then move on, right? And then come back again as if nothing ever happened. So I've met lots of women who are like that. So back to your point, that's why better to know what you're getting into, right? Even if it's difficult and, sort of like a wall sometimes that you have to climb.
What wall are you climbing?
I don't know. I suppose it's the Indian Ocean, is it? Around Africa?
Look, I don't like to be difficult and demanding, but I don't have a problem being difficult and demanding. And if I feel that I'm being railroaded, which happens less now that we've been together for such a long time, but you used to do some slick shit when we were younger and say that, if you can't agree with it and if you can't fall in line, then you can hit the road. You don't recall those?
Yeah. My way or the highway kind of conversations. Yes. I remember those conversations.
And it's a very unfair situation to be placed in as a person, because you're basically being bribed, blackmailed, extorted. You're being bullied.
Yeah. I mean, yes. There's no other way to say it. It's true. It's an unfortunate thing, which obviously that's why I agree that we need to avoid that sort of thing with our children.
So, besides our children, do you work with people with this syndrome? I mean, even in this day and age, is it still prominent for you?
I mean, over the years, yes, I've worked with individuals like that. Recent past, I can remember one person who was like that, who would just start muttering things in meetings which had nothing to do with anything, right? And
such as?
Everyone would sort of look at her strangely, when the fact is she was just worried about, she was just concerned with what she thought, and it didn't have to be relevant, right?
So she liked to hear herself talk.
Yes, and it was completely absurd. right? Like, I mean, we would be talking about funding something, and then she'd suddenly say how fantastic a particular process is. And everyone knew she was not all there.
So what would you do? Ignore her, address it, or table it?
Well, you know how work atmospheres are. You sort of, you just smile and hope that she quietens down, right?
So you don't address it. So basically,
no, these things are never addressed. No.
Why?
I mean, I think
is it mean?
I think it's the reverse of that coin, right? Where you say that, hey, the odds are stacked against us, right? As women, I think also, sometimes as women, people are scared, right? That they'll be accused of that very thing you're talking about,
which is
sexism, right?
So you're saying the Peter Pan syndrome
doesn't spare anyone, right? I mean, there's elements of it in everyone, right? But the question is how much you give into it.
So we're just coining some terms to basically make it seem okay.
Justify nonsensical, inconsiderate behavior by human beings.
Do you think that's an American thing, or you think it's
No.
It's a
worldwide? I think it's universal. Yeah, I think it's universal.
Why is it necessary for us to do that, though? Why can't we just address it face on?
Well, for one, psychologists have got to make some money, right? I mean, they've got to write magazine articles and say, I've discovered this new syndrome, right? It's a very convenient way to treat something that, you see, it's so generic,
So you no longer want the Peter Pan syndrome label?
No. And of course, I sort of named myself that, right? And that's, now that I've done some actual reading on what it is. No, clearly I've grown.
So what do you have now? If it's not the Peter Pan syndrome, what would you... Because I specifically recall...
I think it's escapism, pure and simple, right?
So you're trying to say Peter Pan syndrome is a form of
extreme form of escapism and wanting to create a world that is ideal to you, right? That's what it is.
So you're saying people are living in fantasy land in their own mind?
A lot of people do. I'm pretty sure they do.
How is that possible? There's so much to do during the day.
It's human nature, right?
It's not my nature.
It's human nature. No one, which is ironic, right? Because this podcast is about keeping it real.
And
right?
I like to be...
And people don't want that. People don't want that. People want to escape.
Escape? What is exactly being escaped?
There's an invention that was created at Harvard University, and now they have an office in Menlo Park. I think you know what I'm talking about. There's a very popular app, right,
okay,
which shall not be named.
Yes.
That is exactly a case in point where people want to escape. People want to escape, and they want to read about anything except think about their own lives. That's just how it is.
I find it to be very scary.
It's extremely scary.
But it's very fleeting and fulfilling at the same time, and it's addictive.
And addicting, yes, that's it.
So you're saying we're all walking around, most people with some form of an addiction?
Yes.
So how is this going to play out as humans 5, 10, 15 years from now?
It's unprecedented because what's happening is, and this is not just here, right? It's all over the world.
Very true.
Internet access, mobile internet access is becoming like air and water, right?
So you're saying we're creating generations of Peter Pan syndrome people who cannot relate.
Yes,
they'll rather look at the phone than turn around and talk to the person next to them.
Just look at the line at say on the subway, right? Or look at people sitting in a bus, in any major city.
Remember the story you told me about being on the Muni?
Right. There was, yes. I was in the Muni in San Francisco, and there was, this, he looked pretty Scandinavian to me. And the girl next to him was Brazilian. And why? Because she said something into her phone, and I could tell it was Brazilian Portuguese. So anyway, these guys sitting next to each other, but they're both immersed on their phones, right, doing whatever, but they're not even looking at each other, right?
I recall you telling me they were quite attractive. One was actually on the dating app.
Yes.
So instead of looking at what's around them.
What's it called in those days? I think it was Match.com in those days. Yes. Yeah.
Match.com still exists.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. As you can tell, I don't do that anymore.
Hey, but I mean, that's something for us to discuss. How would you find a new wife in this day and age?
Oh, I don't want to do that.
Are you sure?
Totally.
It may be time for an upgrade.
No.
Yes,
I think
yes.
I think I've reached the pinnacle, right? After this, it's all.
You mean
downhill.
hell?
No, after this is all downhill.
Last time I talked to you, you were already in hell.
Sometimes yes,
Most times, yes.
but a lot of times I create it for myself too.
And that's why, is that a part of your escapism? Thrill seeker?
No, I wouldn't skydive ever again. I wouldn't ever do bungee jumping. Maybe because I'm a little fat now. But I wouldn't risk my life like that, right? I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't do that.
So, do you think the midlife crisis is a form of the Peter Pan syndrome? You're making faces.
I'm not sure.
Why not?
I have to. Obviously, I thought I was a full member of the Peter Pan Club, but then, today I realized I'm not. So, I don't know. Maybe I need to read up really, what it means.
But what do you think a midlife crisis is? Forget reading up.
It's just the fact that, half your life has gone by and you haven't done certain things, you haven't felt certain things, so, you want to go and do that.
Which means you are escaping or trying to pull yourself away from your reality.
Well, the other way. No, I don't see it that way. I think that is, a little different. I think what that is, you are, you want to try things that you haven't tried before, right? You feel
like a new woman.
Yeah. Some people do that. Yeah.
And that's not escaping the old woman?
Well, if you ask me, I think it's a daft idea because...
I mean, you had a few friends.
Because by all accounts, they are in worse places than they were, with their first, with the first wives.
Indulge us. Tell us a story. The first wife was crazy.
Yeah.
The new wife is crazy.
Yes, the first wife was a little, she was, I wouldn't say crazy, but, she had some issues, right? Like all of us. And now this guy, a friend of mine, he's gone and married someone else. And she apparently is a lot worse compared to, the theatrics that she does and so on. So that's, again, that's human beings, right? You don't know exactly. There's no relative scale on which to judge humans. But, yeah. So no. Never again. Ever.
Never ever again what?
No marriage. Second one, that is.
So we'll just stay married?
Yes.
And date?
Yes.
Also, have you met adults that like to dress like a kid? T-shirts, jeans. Is that called what? Hip? What's the term called? Hippie or what's the term called? Hipster. That's the new hipster. That's the new hipster fashion, right?
I don't know. I don't see too many of them, but sure. Yes, they exist. Yes, I saw a lot of them in South Africa, of all places, but yes.
Hipsters?
Mm-hmm.
So, what I'm gathering is that times have changed. And due to different technological advances, I believe we're creating generations and generations of people who are not able to deal in present day reality or relate to those who are in front of them, which is very similar to what they're saying about the Peter Pan syndrome. Adulting, dealing with conflict, being able to handle stress. They want to have fun and they want to be immediately gratified by any means necessary. Convenience in all aspects of life. So when the Peter Pan syndrome, when it was coined, do you think it was, prophesizing what was going to happen? Or do you just think it's just a coincidence with how things have evolved as far as cell phones and internet and just globalization? Do you think it just happened to be that way? Or do you think that term was coining something before its time?
I think as humans, we made that happen. We made that happen. We made all of this happen, right? All this innovation, the technology, right? All of that is changing our lives. And, maybe it's going to evolve, right? Like, for example, I remember, like 30 years ago, they would say the television was a bad thing, right? But now it's so ubiquitous, right? Every home has a couple, almost. And, I think you just assimilate and you move beyond it. I think if you look back, right, a few hundred years, right, you had, the radio, then you had, the record player, you had 8-track player, and so on, right? So I think, these are diversions, and I think we'll move past them. We'll learn how to deal with it as humans. We're smarter than this.
What do you mean deal with it?
We'll move beyond it, right? Like for example, I know that some people, they purposely, once they leave work, they switch off their smartphone because they don't want email. They don't want, other things that suck their time away.
Are you one of those people? Because
I wish.
Right.
I wish. I was actually just looking up a recipe, half an hour ago. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank
you for being very That's why we hide your phone or we steal it from you.
Yes. And that's good. That's good.
So, you don't believe you have the Peter Pan syndrome, but we can agree to disagree.
Yes, of course, as always.
And do you think I have it?
No, you don't.
Okay. I'm just too present and too real.
Too real.
Well, maybe I should pick up some things. The free. Float through life. See what it's like. Maybe I find it fun. Who needs to be responsible?
Well, so in one area, I think you have done that, right? Remember, I advised you, in terms of friends, don't expect, deep conversations, right? And
no, I'm a Rolling Stone.
Right. So now you've changed. So in that sense, of course, you have adopted some of that, right?
Yes, I like,
keeping it light too, right?
What do you call it? I wouldn't say one night friendships, but, daytime friendships. I'm neither here nor there. I'll enjoy while I have it and I'll move on to the next.
Well, it's a good approach because if you remember, there was a lady who tried to befriend you many times. And then, suddenly she's gone, right? She's moved away, right?
Oh,
what if you had
true.
invested time and energy and emotional energy in her, right? And gotten taken in by all her, entreaties to, oh, you're my best friend. I want to be your best friend and so on, right? I mean, that would have been quite hurtful, right? So it's not a bad thing is what I'm saying. So I think the key, again, I mean, this is extremely boring, right? But the key is balance, right? You've got to find balance.
Well, you have to be brave enough to find that balance. And if everyone's trying to escape themselves and life, who knows what to expect?
True.
So you don't have the Peter Pan syndrome. I think you may have a shade of it, but you have improved greatly over the years through much sweat.
I have. Just
blood
imagine.
And yelling.
Exactly. Just imagine, and back
but it's
to
my
your,
hard work. Let's be
question,
clear. It's
right?
my hard work.
No, it's my hard work.
No, it's my nagging and yelling.
No, that doesn't help, right? I mean, that just, that can also drive someone away. But I chose to listen to it and say, hey, you know what? She's got a point.
You just embraced whatever I said very nicely, right?
I didn't. It took 15 years.
Right, and you still have trouble struggling with it. So
yes.
We have to understand, no means no, and it's okay to say no.
Yes.
Now, you may translate that to mean yes in your brain, but in reality, it's no.
Sure.
So this is Mrs. Demanding.
This is Mr. Difficult.
And we are going to wrap up today's episode in regards to the Peter Pan syndrome.
Are you disappointed this episode has come to an end? Well, we are keeping it going with our real talk questions. One real talk question is, do you or someone you know have the Peter Pan syndrome? If so, reach out and tell us about it. Email us your real talk answers and comments. Let us know what you think about this episode and comments on our website. Our next ridiculous episode is called Bagging Nuts versus Buttering Buns. The release date for episode 3 is December 8th, 2017. Finally, I am closing the show with some real talk. The Peter Pan syndrome. Initially, it was my husband's justification for his shitty-ass attitude for our day-to-day responsibilities. Now he has re-diagnosed himself and basically considered himself cured. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit. To me, the Peter Pan syndrome is a fraud. It's a way to make bad choices and behavior seem like it's okay. Life is hard, period, for all of us. But having the right attitude makes a big difference with life in general. We are guaranteed two things, birth and death. Now, what we do with the things in the middle, it's really up to us. What it boils down to is self-awareness and decision-making. People with the quote-unquote Peter Pan syndrome are definitely fun and exciting. But there's two sides to every coin. So think long and hard before you get involved in a potentially fucked up situation relationship. Think about how you're going to balance this out, and what if the person doesn't change? What is it going to look like? Marriage, kids, job, 10, 15, 20 years from now? Think very long and hard. And if you're game for dealing with someone with the Peter Pan syndrome, then go for what you know. But if there's potentially a doubt and worry in your head, then you might want to shift into reverse and don't look back. For immediate episode access, engage with the show with a simple click to subscribe or follow. Now, give. Our episode links to friends, family, and associates. Bring laughter to others and show your love for this podcast.
Please subscribe to our show and tune in next week for another episode of Mr. Difficult and Mrs. Demanding, Keeping It Real podcast. If you'd like to ask us a general question, provide your comments, or make a topic suggestion, then email us at difficultanddemanding@gmail.com. Please follow the show on Twitter at Mr. D and Mrs. D, one word.